If it's a day ending in the letter Y, it must mean we are once again picking up the pieces of a presidential candidate. What he said, how it was said, who was insulted this time, and why it could mean real danger facing Republicans at their convention in Cleveland. Now, speaking of Ohio, the state that has been on the right side of presidential winners for decades, now prepping for their shot in the primary sun with the hometown hero sticking to his guns and perhaps about to severely wound the frontrunner. Another hometown son is facing what many believe will be his endo in Florida, no matter what he does at the last minute. And to begin the week, let's start with the absolute hilarity from one candidate who tells us no one's smarter than he. So when it comes to promoting a doctored video, he's got to be kidding. Right? I'm Ed Berliner, and this is The Hardline for Monday, March 14th, 2016. While it seems we've said this before, this time it holds new and very dangerous meaning. We have reached a true turning point in this presidential campaign season, one where blood is now on the streets of a major American city, where the Constitution is being trampled on with uncomfortable ease, and where the Republican Party is driving toward Cleveland with an angry candidate, angry followers, angry opponents, and a danger light flashing with increasing urgency. Our guests take the center stage with the meat of this issue after this setup from John Bachman.
It was a raucous weekend on the campaign trail, especially for Donald Trump. A sucker punch thrown in North Carolina, a rally shut down in Chicago, a protester rushing the stage in Ohio.
We are now seeing images on television we haven't seen in this country since the 1960s. Images that make us look like a third world country.
There is no place for this.
In any campaign, responsibility starts at the top, and it is not beneficial when you have a presidential candidate like Donald Trump telling his supporters, punch that guy in the face.
He's walking out like big high fives, smiling, laughing, like to punch him in the face, I'll tell you.
Democrats echoing those same comments during a CNN town hall Sunday night.
Donald Trump is responsible for what happens at his events. He is the person who has, for months now, been not just inciting violence, but applauding violence.
He is saying if you go out and beat somebody up, that's okay. I'll pay the legal fees. That is an outrage.
The Washington Times now reports that MoveOn.org, backed by liberal billionaire George Soros, helped raise money for those Chicago protests. And they're promising more disruptions on the way. Trump shows no signs of pulling back, even downplaying recent events at his rallies, calling them, quote, love fests.
The people that are supporters of Donald Trump want to see America be great again. That's what it is.
The fallout from Chicago and a whole lot more. He's a Republican activist, former GOP candidate for office in Illinois, and now columnist at Chicago Rules, as read at Newsmax.com, William Kelly. Joined by veteran Chicago journalist who, as editor and writer, focuses on social justice and politics, Derrick Clifton. Gentlemen, I want to thank you both for being with us. And Derrick, let me come to you first. From a journalist's standpoint, as you look at this and in what happened in Chicago, was this by accident, or was this, as some people want to say, a beautifully planned episode by Donald Trump to make sure he's in the right place, to make sure he gets the right reaction?
Thanks for having me. It looks like this is a fairly organic moment in terms of what's happening on the campaign trail. I mean, for the most part, Donald Trump's rallies have taken place in the Deep South or in fairly rural parts of New England, not a city as diverse or as heavily concentrated in diversity like Chicago, or on a campus that has mostly working class students and students of color like UIC. So in terms of location, the Trump campaign couldn't have chosen a more inhospitable environment for the kind of politics it's been promoting so far on the trail. I don't think we can say this is something that was deliberately planned by the campaign, but more so the result of a lot of organized protests and action in Chicago. I think people are making very clear how they feel about Trump's remarks on Muslims, Trump's remarks on Mexicans and the border. And just over the weekend, there were reports that there were two students at Northwestern University who were arrested for vandalizing the chapel in the name of Trump with swastikas and N-words and other really offensive language. So there's a lot of layers to this, unfortunately. I don't think it's as simple as we want to make it.
William, let's look at MoveOn.org and the possible inclusion there as well, because as we heard in the report, there have been some discussions about it. There have been people saying that, yes, they were involved, there was money spent, whatever. But again, it comes down down to those sitting on the other side. And again, we're going to try and cut this right down the middle here and try and be fair. There are those saying that, yes, MoveOn.org is part of this. They brought out a group of people. They knew exactly what they were doing. They knew that this was going to make a disaster out of this. But the others who will say that, yes, that's why this event was held here, because Donald Trump knew that he was moving right into their backyard, and he wants that because that speaks to his base. What's your take?
Ed, first of all, thank you for having me. And I do agree with your guest on one point. The UIC campus, or any campus in the city of Chicago, would have been a very inhospitable place for Donald Trump because of the fact that Mayor Rahm Emanuel has turned our city, my city, the greatest city in the history of the world, the city of Chicago, into a third world country style scenario now, with roving gangs committing crime, murder like you would see in Fallujah, okay? Not to mention unemployment among black youth that is astronomical, okay? The fact of the matter is that your guest has brought up a very, very, very sad situation in the city of Chicago. 2 students on the campus of NU, Northwestern University, I believe your guest's alma mater, have been arrested, have been charged with spray painting swastikas in a chapel, okay? There's only one thing that I find a little strange about it. One of them is named Morales, the other one is named Kafka, okay?
Okay, William, I'm afraid I'm going to have to interject this. What does that have to do then with what Donald Trump is doing?
What does it have to do with it? What it has to do with is that these students, these organizations, are paid provocateurs. Have you ever heard the term?
Kidding.
Hey, have you ever heard the term false flag? Okay.
Yeah, I have heard the term false flag, and I've got to be very honest with you. 99% of the time, I think it's incorrectly used, and I don't think there's much behind it. We have to move on from this, honest to goodness, because we're getting off the track here. I know that you had a reaction to it, Derrick. If you would, give me a quick reaction to what William said.
Tell me more. Yes, thank you.
I don't think that we can just say this is a false flag here. If you have 2 students on a campus, I don't think we can dissect their last names or their potential ethnic backgrounds and say that they're for certain supporting another agenda here. What they did was they went and vandalized an interfaith chapel and threw Trump's name up on one of the walls. He threw swastikas. They drew lines across the faces of Muslim students, and they're risking their academic careers and their livelihoods.
Well, I'm going to bring this, I got to bring this thing back to some sort of a reality here. I only got 4 minutes here, and we're getting really off the track here, though, because here's the thing that we have to get down to. And William, I'm going to come to you on this. We still have to get down to responsibility here. There are people saying that it is the protesters that are responsible for what has happened here. There are those saying that this is Donald Trump who is responsible with his actions and with the actions of those who follow him, like Ann Coulter, another despicable comment where she comes out and says we need more violence.
Ed, you are wonderful, and thank you for having me on. You're right. Responsibility is the key word here. Your guest is saying that there's only one person who's responsible for anything in the entire country right now, and that's Donald Trump.
Wait a minute. Hang on one sec. Derrick, is that what you're saying?
That's not what I said. Of course, the people who, like the guy who was in Fayetteville, North Carolina, who sucker punched a person who came and protested, he's responsible for that. And of course, the students who drew the swastikas, anyone who's inciting any violence is responsible.
Got your answer. William, go ahead and finish. Hang on one sec, Derrick. Hang on. I'm going to play a referee here. William, go ahead and finish, William.
Thank you, Ed. It's absolutely outrageous that your guest will come on a TV show and act as if somehow people who go and create a disruption are not in any way, shape, or form responsible for any of the consequences. Okay, cause and effect.
You have wax in your ears or what? I said the people who are inciting violence are the ones who should be held accountable here, but we also have to take a look at the candidates and their rhetoric, and if they are inciting violence multiple times, the clips have the receipts. Trump has gone on record repeatedly encouraging it.
Rally but for you. There would be no violence at a Trump rally but for you.
Okay, wait a minute. But for you, let's once again, I've only got 2 minutes left here, so I'm going to have to bring this down to some sort of a conclusion here. Donald Trump also tweeted out a retweet of a fake ISIS video, and he says, all I know is what's on the internet. Derrick, do we not have to look at this, that if indeed there are people out there listening to us right now who are big fans of Donald Trump, and they're going to come down like a ton of bricks when they hear this interview, but do we not have to tell them, like anybody else, he is a presidential candidate, and does he not have a responsibility to help bring the level of the rhetoric down, as well as the protesters have their own responsibility to make sure that they are not out there hurting people as well? How am I doing?
Organized protest is an American tradition. It's been a part of politics for decades, right? If people are entering any space or where they're protesting, if the organizers don't want them there, the organizers have every right to peacefully usher them out. It does not mean that that protester deserves to be punched or that any property.
But does that protester also not have a responsibility? Gentlemen, hang on. Does that protester also not have a responsibility to be peaceful in what he or she does? Yes?
Have they not been peaceful? I think they have been. We didn't see in that video the young protester being sucker punched. We didn't see him attack back.
Okay, but I have seen videos, though, of people standing in front of ambulances with their two middle fingers stuck up at the ambulance drivers. Let's be fair here. Guys, we could go on like this for half an hour, but let me just say this. Derrick, is it not fair? We are talking about the Constitution here. The freedom of speech in the First Amendment does not include the right to incite actions that would harm others. That's Schenck versus the United States. That is a law. Is it not fair to say that Donald Trump and everybody need to follow the Constitution and not incite actions? 10 seconds, Derrick.
Donald Trump needs to be accountable and not incite violence with his actions and his rhetoric.
And the people as well. Yes or no?
People as well,
yes or no? And the people, yes or no?
Violent. We need to.
Okay, I'm going to take that as a yes. William, to you.
Ed, I know that it will hurt Derrick's feelings for me to mention the Founding Fathers, but they believe that the First Amendment was the freedom of speech. Chicago's violence problem is not Donald Trump's problem. We have murder, rape, robbery.
Okay, you're off on another topic here. We have a lot of things to discuss. We'll continue. Derrick Clifton, William Kelly, thank you.